players that this country has ever had.
No, listen, the kid was a genius, man. He was an unbelievable player.
Football is and will be part of my life until the day I die, whether I like it or not.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the new Amazon Prime documentary, Rooney. Now, some of you may, by following the content, notice I've done a few documentary reviews over the years. I've done quite a few Man United ones, 2 or 3 from memory anyway. I've done a George Best one, I think, Alex Ferguson one. I've done at least 2 or 3 documentary reviews, which might give you a hint that I'm a Man United fan, and I am. I'm not going to lie, I am a Man United fan. Now, these days, that doesn't necessarily mean that's something to celebrate, because we're not doing particularly well. However, I do like to celebrate the careers of club legends, and there is no doubt that Wayne Rooney is a Man United club legend. Some Man United fans may want to debate that, and I understand that debate, and this documentary does get into that debate a little bit. But for me, I thought he put a lot of passion, heart, and desire onto the pitch, and he's deserving of that mantle. Now, what do we get with this new Amazon Prime documentary about Wayne Rooney and his life in football and out of football as well? Well, in a lot of ways, it's a really fascinating insight into Wayne Rooney's life, past and present, his thought processes at certain points in his career. But like a lot of sports documentaries that I've seen over the last few years, kind of, in some aspects, really failed to get under the skin and really get down to the nitty-gritty. For me, it felt like there were pieces of the puzzle missed, and it felt a little bit rushed by the end. I think you probably could have spent another hour talking about Rooney, as you could many sportsmen. When you watch documentaries about many sports people, sometimes you just wish they were longer, because there was far more detail that you think you could have been told in the documentary, and this one is no exception. Now, obviously, it starts at the beginning of his career. It talks about him as a young kid, growing up in the rough estate in Liverpool, how difficult that was, even though he didn't really see it that way. He was a bit of a bad kid. He used to get into fights, all this kind of stuff, and then how talented he was as a footballer, as a young footballer. He broke into the Everton team at a young age of 16. Put himself on the football stage by scoring that winning goal against Everton. And then his rise into international football fairly quickly and fairly young. His impact at the 2004 Euros. And then his subsequent move to Manchester United, I believe it was that summer. And his career following on from that. Really good stuff. Certainly, I think we got an awful lot about Wayne Rooney at the early part of his career. I learned a lot of things about him that I didn't know in regards to him growing up and certain aspects and his mind frame. As to, he kind of felt like he was invincible at that young age, at that stage of his career. It was like raw, natural talent that hadn't been kind of moulded in any way. Now, obviously, when he came to Man United, that genius was always there, but he had Alex Ferguson and all these other players surrounding these world-class players that kind of could, get rid of the rough edges and kind of fine-tune the machine, which certainly did happen. But you could also argue it took a little bit away from his natural game, certainly later on in his career, anyway. And I thought it was really good. It focused very heavily on his early part of his career, like at Everton, his early part in his career, certainly internationals, focused very heavily on the early tournaments that he was in for England, certainly. And the fact that, he broke his metatarsals and all the build-up to that, and, how disappointed he was at that World Cup. And we got lots of people being interviewed. Sven-Göran Eriksson, the England manager that managed him for a good portion of his career, Beckham, Gary Neville, Thierry Henry, quite a few journalists, and obviously members of his family, and past managers like Jose Mourinho, David Moyes, people like that, and obviously his wife, Colleen, as well. Now, one thing I thought this documentary was good, it needed addressing, is they did address his... how do you put it? misjudgments he made in his marriage. Essentially, he's cheated on his wife a couple of times. It was heavily covered in the media at the time, and he got a lot of stick for it, as he should have done. It's unforgivable in my opinion when you do something like that. But it did talk quite frankly about it, about how they kind of came to terms with it and decided to move on as a husband and wife. You got the impression from watching them together that there's obviously a lot of love and respect there, but as they say in the documentary, they've never really been like lovey-dovey and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was good to see them together as a family. You see him at home with his family and his kids, and his wife being interviewed and all that kind of stuff. And it was relatively revealing. For me, I think this documentary, where it failed was there was no fresh interview coverage with Sir Alex Ferguson, which I thought was bizarre because he had obviously such a massive impact on his career. It did cover his decision to want to leave Man United in 2010 and the subsequent thought processes in regards to that kind of lost him a lot of respect from the Man United fans. But when you actually analyse it now, he was actually speaking truths because, our current ownership was in charge then, and he thought they weren't being ambitious enough. And he was right, and that's coming to fruition now because we don't have Sir Alex Ferguson managing the team anymore. We don't have a genius manager anymore that can still drive the team forward. So he was right to stand up probably at that time. But obviously he made amends and he stayed on at Man United. But there was no fresh interview coverage with Sir Alex Ferguson, which I thought was really lacking in the documentary. And there was not enough coverage from the latter part of his career. From when he kind of hit 30 onwards, when Sir Alex left, how that felt, what did he, how the club was at that time and the managers that came in, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, all that kind of stuff. There was none of that, and I just thought that was a bit bizarre. And then his time in America, and then he's going back to Everton, and now it did talk a little bit about his time going into management at Derby, but not a great deal. So I thought the back end of the documentary lacked quite a lot of information. And I thought there were some key people missing from the documentary to talk about Wayne Rooney. But great to see him getting some of the recognition he deserves, because I don't necessarily think he does get the recognition he deserves, Wayne Rooney. Fabulous player. When you actually analyse everything he achieved at club and arguably country, I know there's an argument that he did never really delivered for England, but there were quite a few tournaments he was injured at. But an incredible career, no doubt, and in my mind, one of the greatest players ever to lace boots as an Englishman. So I'm going to give this documentary an 8 out of 10. I do think there are aspects of it lacking, but it is still, if you're a fan of Man United and you're certainly enjoyed Wayne Rooney as a football player, I think you'll find quite a lot of this documentary to enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed this review, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with more content on the channel very, very soon.